Let's read today's daily text for Sunday, September the 9th. Keep looking, keep awake, for you do not know when the appointed time is. Mark 13:33. The Watchtower's comment says, most nations today have watchmen in the form of border patrols and high-tech surveillance systems. They watch for intrusions into their territory and for enemies who pose a threat to national security. However, such watchmen can perceive only those threats that come from man-made governments or humans. They are unaware of the existence and activities of God's heavenly kingdom government and the hands of Christ, and the role it will play in the impending judgment on all the nations. On the other hand, by being alert and watchful spiritually, we will be ready whenever that day of judgment arrives. The closer we get to the end of the system of things, the greater the challenge for us to stay awake. How tragic it would be if we were to fail to keep on the watch. Yes, that would be tragic, wouldn't it? Jesus gave us this warning. Keep looking, keep awake, for you do not know when the appointed time is. The appointed time for what? The Watchtower implies here the appointed time for Jesus to judge the nations. Well, that will surely happen, but is that what Jesus was speaking about? Well, take a look at the scripture. Mark 13:33, let's look at it in context. In verse 32, Jesus said, concerning that day or the hour nobody knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but the Father. Keep looking, keep awake, for you do not know when the appointed time is. And then Jesus gives an illustration. It is like a man traveling abroad who left his house and gave the authority to his slaves to each his work and commanded the doorkeeper to keep on the watch. Keep on the watch, therefore, for you do not know when the master of the house is coming, whether late in the day or at midnight or before dawn or early in the morning, in order that when he comes suddenly, he does not find you sleeping. But what I say to you, I say to all, keep on the watch. Well, in the illustration there, Jesus is, of course, the one who traveled abroad. He left his house in the hands of his slaves, his house being his congregation. He appointed his slaves to administer food and supplies and take care of things in the house. But they better be on the watch for his return, because if he finds them sleeping, then they're going to be punished. And that's the point of the illustration. And that's what Jesus was saying. You do not know when the appointed time is, not for him to judge the nations. That comes secondarily. The appointed time for the house of God to be judged is first. That's the first order of business. If Jesus came in 1914, we would expect that would have been what occurred. And you know, that's what the Watchtower taught until about 5 years ago. 2013, they shifted again. It used to be they taught that Jesus came in 1914, and then in 1918, 1919, he appointed his faithful slave over all of his belongings. They revised that now to a point in the future. Yet in this text, they're still telling you to be on the watch for Jesus to come to judge these other guys, not us. Not us. Oh, even though we're the faithful and discreet slave, we're the master of the house, and he's coming to judge us, but no. The way they finagled things here, can you say that it's helping Jehovah's Witnesses to be more watchful or less so? I think you know the answer to that. The article which this daily text was taken, every daily text is extrapolated from a Watchtower article, usually the year before. This one is taken from an article that says, "Why must we keep on the watch?" And it makes a statement here. As Jehovah's Witnesses, this is the third paragraph in this article, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we take seriously Jesus' warning. Well, do you really? We know that we are living deep in the time of the end, and that there cannot be much time left before the great tribulation begins. We see distressing wars, increasing immorality and lawlessness, religious confusion, food shortages, pestilence, earthquakes taking place around the world, and we know that the phenomenal kingdom preaching work is being accomplished by Jehovah's people everywhere. Okay, this expression, we're deep into the time of the end. The time of the end begins when the Master comes. All right? The Watchtower says Jesus came, the second coming of Christ was in 1914, and that's when the time of the end began. And now we're deep into the time of the end, 114 years. So all the things that have been prophesied to occur in the time of the end have already occurred. It's all history. And, for example, the 11th chapter of Daniel foretells that, this ongoing, centuries-long struggle between the king of the north and the south. But in the time of the end, there will occur a pushing, and the king of the north will storm with chariots and flood over, and he will take over his nemesis in the south, and that part of the prophecy known as Egypt, and he will rule over his hidden treasures in gold and silver. Well, that's all history. The pushing happened with Germany during World War II. Then it happened some more with the Soviet Union, and then the Soviet Union ruled over the gold and silver of America. Who the king of the north is now, we don't know. And it's not really important. It's, we just kind of not into prophecy anymore. But the tribulation's right on us. We're deep, deep, deep into the time of the end. The 8th chapter of Daniel has a prophecy concerning a king fierce in countenance. And not only does he bring the mighty ones of this world to ruin, he brings the holy ones to ruin. Oh yeah, that happened. That's history. World War II, the Anglo-American king, they persecuted the holy ones. The holy place was made right. We made a few organizational adjustments on our charter. That's all fulfilled. So that's where the Watchtower is. They've really painted themselves into a corner with this 1914 thing. It's interesting. I think it's the 56th chapter of Isaiah. From the 40th chapter on is pretty much a dialogue that Jehovah has with his organization after and during when he punishes them. But, it says it's the judgments of Jehovah. It's really when Christ comes, when the master of the house returns in the name of Jehovah and speaks Jehovah's judgments. And that's when he says, lift your eyes high up, who created these things? He has to remind his people who God is, because all this chaos will be taking place and it will appear as if all is lost. Well, but at that time, the sovereign Lord Jehovah, it says here in the 56th chapter of Isaiah, but again, it's Christ asserting Jehovah's rulership. He says, I will The sovereign Lord Jehovah declares, who is gathering the dispersed ones of Israel. Well, didn't Jesus say when he comes with his angels, the trumpet will sound and they will gather the chosen ones from the four corners? That's Israel, not physical Israel. I will gather to him others besides those already gathered. The scattered flock that becomes the great crowd. All you wild animals of the field come to eat, all you wild animals in the forest. So there's a new feeding arrangement. You didn't know you were animals? Well, Jehovah refers to you as sheep, right? So don't be offended by that. Jehovah is obviously vastly superior to humans, so it's appropriate that he refer to us as animals. It's better than grasshoppers, as he uses that analogy too. But verse 10, his watchmen are blind. None of them have taken note. All of them are speechless dogs, unable to bark. They're panting and lying down. They love to slumber. They are dogs with a voracious appetite. They are never satisfied. Well, who are these? There's got to be the clergy, right? Well, they don't really claim to be watchmen, do they? The next verse says they are shepherds who have no understanding. They have all gone their own way. Every last one of them seeks his own dishonest gain and says, come, let us take some wine and let us drink our fill of alcohol, and tomorrow will be like today, only far better. Watchtower has their new castle in Warwick, and things are really looking up. Not talking about literal alcohol, of course. But can't we say that the Watchtower claims to be a watchman? That's what the Watchtower implies. The Awake magazine, the governing body, claimed to be a voice of the watchmen. His watchmen are blind. They are blind. They have no clue how this world is functioning now, what's going on. They don't even care. Read the, it's hard to read, but the November study edition of the Watchtower about trusting Jehovah, and they veer off into the book of Habakkuk. And they're getting to the point with, when they consider prophecy, it's almost like it's become a children's kiddie book, Habakkuk was a prophet of old. He lived in bad times, and it is really degrading. But they want you to look up to them as the watchmen. That's their voracious appetite. They want to dominate over God's people. They don't want to be held accountable. And obviously they love to slumber. They're not at all aware of what's happening in the world today. You never read in the Watchtower here from the platform that the nations are building up to a third world war. We're facing a complete terrifying situation. They love to slumber. But they'll get a wake-up call, I would assume, in the near future. And listen, I know most of you don't believe any of this, but thanks for watching.